One of the greatest inventions in history happened by accident. Of course, I'm talking about Doc and the flux capacitor. He was in his bathroom. I think he was hanging something up or something like that. And he fell and he hit his head on the toilet. And then he had the vision of the flux capacitor. And it was one of the greatest inventions in history, at least in the movie world.
Yeah, I mean, it made time travel possible.
Yeah, I got to go back to the future. And the thing what we want to do is understand that a lot of times our thinking, the things that go on in our brain, they don't happen by accident. They make for great movie plots. Yeah. I love Back to the Future.
Mm-hmm. It's great.
But our thinking doesn't happen that way.
No, or at least it won't be good if it happens that way.
Yeah, and a lot of times we have more control over our thoughts than we really think we do.
Yeah, than we give ourselves credit for.
Yeah, and so what we want to do today on this show is talk about what you can do to retrain your brain. In fact, we're going to give you 3 steps to retrain your brain and help your thoughts be better.
This is the Thriving Man Podcast with David and Reese Maxwell. These weekly shows are designed to help you remove the confusion from your life and make real progress with your growth. No matter where you are or where you're going, we're here to help you live a life you can be proud of. So welcome to the Thriving Man Podcast.
Welcome to the Thriving Man Podcast, where our goal is to help you live a life that you can be proud of. I am Reese.
And I'm David.
And he's my dad. And we're going to go ahead and jump in with the topic of retraining your brain.
Yeah.
Let's talk about getting lost.
Okay.
We both know of a person who did not have the greatest sense of direction. Go ahead and mention that story.
It's true. Your mother, my wife, had absolutely no sense of direction. One of the greatest inventions for her was the smartphone.
Yeah.
Because it could give directions.
She got lost in our neighborhood one time.
Yeah.
Back when we lived on the coast.
That's true. She did.
That happened.
She just never paid attention. She just didn't. And one time we were driving and we were going to the coast. Mm-hmm. We've been that way a million times. And I happened to fall asleep. And she was driving. When I woke up, I looked around and I thought, this doesn't seem right. And I was like, did you turn on 49? And she goes, I don't know. She was just driving. The road was going. She was going. She wasn't paying attention. And she passed the turn and had gone probably 4 or 5 miles out of the way. So we had to turn around and go back. And of course, it was my fault.
Yep.
Because I fell asleep.
Yep.
Yeah, because I fell asleep.
You, buddy.
So it's funny that she just had no sense of direction. She just couldn't think of what was going on. She was too busy either engaging in conversation or doing what, and she just wanted someone else to take care of the driving.
Yeah, it's funny, like what you mentioned is she got lost because she wasn't paying attention to it.
Yeah.
And that's a lot of times how our thought life happens. We end up in some really weird places mentally because we aren't paying attention. Now, there's good news. Because a lot of us assume that the way we think is something we're born with. Oh, it's my personality. I can't change. It's not possible for me to change. Maybe somebody else can, but not me.
Well, that's the danger of like all the tests, like the personality tests,
that's true.
The Enneagrams, all the things out there. And sometimes people get so locked into those that they think, well, this is how I am and I'm never going to be different.
Yeah, and a really cool thing happened decades ago in brain science, because for the longest time, people thought that the brain developed for about the first 20 to 25 years, and then it was pretty much set, like concrete. It was moldable at the beginning, but once it's set, it's set. You're not changing it. However, they discovered a principle that's now known as neuroplasticity. Neuroplasticity is this concept which it's a proven fact. Your brain is constantly rewiring itself your entire life. So until the day you die, your thought patterns are changing based on what you are in, what you are thinking about, what you're focusing on. So your brain's very moldable. Now, it's not easy. It's not like overnight you can just be like, well, I just want to not be sad ever. Let me think about happy thoughts. You know, it's not easy like that. It's a process. It takes time.
Well, and I think of things like learning a new language.
Yes.
When you're
Great
young,
example.
it's easier, but as you're older, It's very difficult because your brain is used to speaking one way, and to switch to another language takes a lot of work, a lot of thought. I mean, you're going through that as you're learning Spanish.
Yeah. And to be honest, I think another factor plays into that. Like when it comes to language learning, kids, the expectation of everyone on them is they're going to make mistakes. So they just speak. They're just speaking a bunch. Yeah. And as an adult, you're like, I don't want to be dumb.
I don't want to mess up.
Yeah, let me think of a way to say this correct. Let me use Google Translate. You know, I still do that. Yeah. So there's more factors, but that is definitely one of them. Is like it takes long-term sustained effort to shift your brain.
Yeah,
I've been learning language. I've been learning Spanish for 5 years now, just a little bit every day, and I'm just now to the point where I'm like over halfway, and I can understand a decent bit. You know, for like a full minute will go by and I'll get everything.
Yeah.
Now then another minute will go by and I'll get nothing.
Yeah.
So, you know, I'm still in the in-between, but it's been a process.
Yeah.
It's been a long process.
Yeah, and I think that's what we have to remember when it comes to our thinking. When we understand neuroplasticity and what can happen, you can change the way you think. You're not stuck with it.
Yes.
And what we want to do is help you find ways to kind of go on that journey of retraining your brain, things that you can do so you can think differently, so you can actually find more success in different areas of your life.
Yeah, it is a lifelong process.
It is.
Something we say here at Thriving Man is that success is inside out and it's on the way.
On the way.
Inside out in terms of you have to work inwardly in order to have outward success. And then 2, on the way, it never stops. Just like your brain never stops changing itself until you die, you never stop changing until you die. Yeah. And that can be bad for people.
Yeah.
But really, it can be one of your biggest assets.
Well, it helps you, like if you've had trauma in your life or you've had some really terrible things happen to you, it doesn't mean you're stuck with those memories. You can deal with them. Is it easy? No. But you can change that. It's like physical ailments, you know, or exercise. We always talk about exercise. You know, you don't exercise for a month and be like, I'm good for the year.
I've lost 100 pounds.
Yeah.
I'm done.
Yeah. You have to keep it up. And a lot of people, that's the keeping up, it's the doing it over and over. That's the hard part. But on the other side, you look back and think, I'm glad I did that. And I think it's the same thing for your brain. You can retrain your brain. It's just going to take some work and effort. Anyone who tells you you can't, they're probably selling you something and it's not real. It does take work, but it can be done.
Yeah. And what we want to give you today is just 3 very basic steps to retrain your brain.
Yeah.
Now, there are plenty of books. If you guys have questions about books that go really in depth into the science or the process of it, we can recommend those. But we're talking very general. For your average person, if you can do these 3 things, you're probably going to be way more intentional about building your thought life than most people.
Yeah, you will. You'll be ahead of the game than 80% of men out there.
Yeah. So 1, recognize your thoughts. That's the first step.
Yeah.
Recognition is always the first step to change.
Yeah, and I think what you have to do is really look at your thoughts and say, okay, am I thinking a good way or am I thinking a bad way? Because you don't know if something is good or bad unless you assess it, unless you look at it. It's just like in school. Why did they give us tests? To see if we learn the knowledge. And you take the test, it's their way of knowing, do you know it or do you not? The bar, if you want to be a lawyer, you have to pass the bar. Medical exams, those are all tests. And what we want to do is kind of assess ourselves, test ourselves, and say, how is my thinking? Is it good? Is it bad? And that's something that a lot of us, we're busy living life. We just don't do.
And I mean, we all know somebody who was just painfully unaware of an issue they had. Yeah. Well, I had a friend back in middle school. Well, it's a very general name. His name was Christian. Yeah. And I haven't talked to him in years, but I still remember in middle school, he'd come over and he was really funny, really an enjoyable person to be around, but he had bad breath, bro. Like, I don't know if he just never brushed his teeth or he always ate something for breakfast, but it was like I stayed a couple feet away just because if it hit me, it was going to like singe my hairs on my eyebrows. My eyebrows would just be gone because his breath was rank. And he just didn't know. He was just talking.
Yeah.
He was just having a good time.
He was happy because he was used to it. He didn't know.
Yeah. He wasn't thinking about it. He's not like,
Yeah.
you're in middle school. You don't even know how to use deodorant yet.
Yeah. Well, and that's what I mean, working with middle schoolers for a long time, a lot of them get that way. And you have to have that conversation with them. You have to say, hey, this is deodorant.
Yeah.
And you're at an age, you need this. And most of them will be like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
But a lot of us are thinking things we don't even know because we don't take the time to assess, is this a good thought? Is this a bad thought? We just think, well, it's not that important. But it really is.
Yeah, just because you're used to it doesn't mean it's good.
Yeah.
Like we talked a couple weeks ago about a negative Nancy, like a person whose entire personality was negative.
Yeah.
For them, they're not even thinking about it. Now, everybody else is like, oh my gosh, be quiet. Stop it. We're on vacation, or whatever.
Yeah.
But that person for themselves is just thinking how they think.
Yeah.
You have to become aware.
Yeah,
you
do.
That's the first step.
Yeah.
So, Dad, give them a couple areas of how can they develop an awareness? What do they need to be aware of when it comes to their thoughts?
Yeah, when you're thinking about how you're thinking, I think the first thing you want to look at is what do you think about yourself? And it doesn't mean, again, last week we talked about narcissism and you're like, well, wait, you told me not to think about myself. No, we didn't. We said that are you the center of the universe? The only way to know that is to really think about yourself. And I think one test that you can do that's a really good way to test, when you make a mistake as a man, do you beat yourself up? Or do you okay, let me learn from this and move ahead?
Or do you blame other people?
All those things happen from one thing. Like if you were to, you're hammering and you hit your thumb, it's painful. Do you get angry at yourself? Or do you just okay, I need to slow down and focus a little more? Or do you, why am I using this hammer?
Who designed this hammer?
Who designed this dumb hammer? And so what we want to do is look at what do we do when things happen like that? When we make a mistake, do we just abuse ourselves? Because a lot of times that's a sign of some things that are going on mentally that aren't very good.
Unhealthy.
Yeah. That'll be unhealthy.
Yeah, so, you got to recognize that.
Yeah, and I think it starts with you. What do you think about yourself? And then it goes to what do you think of others when they make a mistake? Because sometimes we'll abuse ourselves, but we're forgiving to others.
Yeah.
Or we also expect perfection from them.
Yeah, or we'll forgive ourselves, but not others.
Yeah,
we'll judge ourselves by our intentions, and we'll judge others by their actions.
And so what do you do when other people make a mistake? And what do you do if someone comes up to you and says, hey, you got some funky breath?
Yeah.
Do we get mad at them?
That's a good point.
If somebody came up to you, like as a man, I appreciate when men come up and say, hey, your zipper's down.
Yeah.
Because sometimes that just happens.
Yep.
You're in the bathroom, you go to wash your hands and you walk out and you don't realize zipper's down. And if you got a guy come up to you and say, hey, you want to check, that's a good friend, number one. But if we just get mad at them, well, what are you looking there for?
Yeah.
And we abuse them because we made a mistake.
Yeah.
Well, that's a sign that something's going on in our head, that we expect this perfection level, and so we're taking it out on someone else.
Yeah, it's true. Like Emily and I are a perfect example of this because I don't know how. I don't know if it's the way God designed my nose.
Yeah.
But I almost eternally have what we call a cloud in the sky. just a booger that's hiding up there.
Yeah.
I check every time I leave the bathroom.
Yeah.
I always check my nose because I don't know how it happens.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like my nose could be free and clear. It could feel fine. And Emily's just like, hey, you got a cloud in the sky. And it's so annoying.
That's funny.
But the question is like, how do I respond when that happens?
Yeah.
Am I just like, oh my gosh, getting mad at her or getting mad at me or I don't know.
Yeah.
Like, because that's no one's fault. It just happens.
Yeah.
But how do you respond in that moment?
Yeah.
That's an important question. And it brings stuff up to the surface.
Yeah. And when it comes to other people, things like when somebody has something happen and it inconveniences me, do I blame them? If you have a friend who calls you and say, dude, hey, I need your help with this. Are you like, great? You're always, and do you get angry at them?
I was going to go do this. I was going to go do that. And now I have to do this.
I know. I was going to sit down and binge watch. Now I have to come help you. And a lot of times that reflects on us kind of that narcissism, that selfishness. And what we want to do is be careful of that and just kind of watch your reactions. If somebody puts, and I'm not saying people can abuse you, okay? We're not talking that.
Yeah.
We're talking a balanced approach where you have a friend who says, hey, dude, can you help me with this? Are you willing to help, or do you like, great? That shows something that's going on with you.
Yeah, or maybe if you have a savior mentality.
Yeah.
It's my responsibility to fix everyone else's problems all the time, 24/7.
Yeah.
That's also an unhealthy thought you need to become aware of.
It is, yeah.
I think that the final one that deals with other people, how do you respond when people are better at you than things that you're good at?
Yeah.
So how do you respond? Do you compare yourself? Do you get mad at yourself? Do you get bitter at them?
Yeah.
Do you start making excuses? That's another one that can bring stuff to the surface.
Yeah, and we see that in our society today. If somebody is wealthy, a lot of times people want to make, they cheated. They
get mad at them.
They did this. They should pay more. They should do this. And we've almost got this society now where when someone's wealthy, other people are bashing them. But then if those people become wealthy, they think, well, wait, that's different.
Yeah.
That's my
I worked
money.
hard.
Yeah, I worked hard because those other people didn't. And a lot of times what it does is it reflects more of us than of them. I'm not saying that some people didn't get rich in nefarious ways and they did bad stuff. But I know it's a good word.
Nefarious.
Yeah, nefarious. But the majority of people who make a lot of money have worked very hard.
Right.
Like Elon Musk, one of the richest men in the world, is supposed to be like a 17, 18 hour a day worker, really unhealthily. But you can't deny what he's done business-wise.
Yeah.
But a lot of us, we think, well, that person does this, that, and the other. And we actually hate on them just because they have more money than us.
Right.
Or they're successful. And that really reflects more of us than it does them.
Yeah. The final step to kind of examine your own thoughts is how do you respond when things don't go your way? Like when a car breaks down or when you get sick. Everybody gets sick. Just the things of life. What is your reaction when those occur?
Yeah. It's like the other day we had a friend who he was going to work and his mother-in-law called and said, hey, I got a flat tire. Okay, let me go fix that. So he goes and works that out, takes a couple hours to do. And when he was about done with that, his wife calls. Same day, same problem. I got a tire. So he ended up spending the whole day getting tires fixed. He never made it to work. And it was so cool to see that he messaged and said, hey, just one of those days. And he kind of laughed it off. And that was a big step, I think, for him. And I think for us as men, when things don't go your way, do you get angry? Do you laugh it off?
Yep.
Are you able to just kind of chill and go, hey, it's just one of those days? Some people get so mad when things don't go their way. Oh, the light turned red and I'm late and it's the road's fault and all this. And we blame everything and everyone else when really it's our issue.
Yeah. And this is a principle I want you to be able to walk away with when it comes to recognizing your thoughts. Negative thoughts tend to arrive in negative circumstances.
Yeah.
Negative thoughts tend to arise in negative circumstances.
Yeah.
So whenever something negative goes on in your life, be very quick to look at your own thoughts. And that's usually going to bring up to the surface anything that may be unhealthy. We came up with this when we were talking, and it rhymes, so I think it's cool. The fire exposes your resiliency or your fragility.
Yeah.
And I think it's one of the two.
And that's a good illustration because for a lot of men, when they go through hard times, how they respond really says a lot about them. And the Bible talks about, gold being refined in the fire. You burn off the impurities. And in our life sometimes we'll go through hard times. Everybody does. Other people's hard times may not be yours.
Yep.
Yours may not be theirs, but everybody goes through hard times in life. And what we have to understand is a lot of times those hard times bring up things for us to examine, for us to say, okay, this needs to be changed, or to say, hey, I responded a whole lot better this time than last time.
Yep.
And you see your own growth, which is encouraging.
Yeah. I think John Maxwell said this. He said, success comes not to the people who have the best in life, but the people who make the best of life.
Yeah, I think that's a great point.
And that's the kind of person I want to be.
Yeah.
You know, that's the kind of person we want you to be.
Yeah.
Now, we've got two more. We spent almost 20 minutes on the first one, so we're going to have to book it.
We got to book it.
We're going to have to
Sorry
go
about
for
that.
it. No, I mean, I think it's good stuff,
Yeah,
honestly.
it is.
I'm
It is.
a little biased. But 2, challenge your thoughts.
Yeah.
The fact is, wrestling with your own thoughts and being exposed to truth that can bring up the lies and show you what's true.
Yeah, yeah.
That is an important part of rewiring your brain, retraining how you think.
Yeah, because your thoughts are not always wrong. But what you want to do is wrestle with them to see, okay, what's right, what's wrong.
What's accurate, what's inaccurate.
Yeah, and you know, one of the best ways to do that is to just get good input, to get input from people. You know, find out what do other people think. And it's not to give up your thoughts. It's to kind of wrestle with them and say, is this still right?
Right.
And I think that's healthy. I think it's strong for us to do as men because it just makes us stronger. It's just like working your muscle. Your muscle gets bigger and stronger the more you work it. Your brain will get stronger the more you wrestle with it and look at thoughts and read and do things to kind of grow yourself.
Yeah. And as you seek out new or different sources of input, that also can challenge the way you think.
Yeah.
Not just a person, but even like the music you listen to or the movies you watch or the shows you pay attention to, the social media people you follow. The truth is, you're always getting mentored.
Yeah.
And so you've got two choices. It can happen on accident
Yeah.
or it can be intentional. If it happens on accident, you know, somebody that watches horror movies 24/7
Yeah.
and then is scared to turn the lights off in their house,
Yeah.
they have been mentored.
They've been mentored.
They've received some input that has changed the way they thought.
Yeah.
It was just whatever.
Yeah.
And it affected them in a negative way.
It's true.
You know,
It's true.
HGTV, another good example. We talked about that with Atmosphere.
Yeah.
But like, if you are constantly thinking of how crappy your house is, because you're looking online at people who have $60 million homes, you're being mentored.
Yeah. Yeah.
But instead of letting that be something that hurts you, you can be intentional and begin to make it something that helps you.
Yeah, you can look for people who are living a life you want to live or people who have a character you want to have and say, okay, let me learn from them. That's why the power of books is so good because you read a book and a person has taken a lot of their life and put it into the book and synthesized it to help you grow.
Yes.
And a lot of us just ignore them when those are some of the best things that can help us and mentor us. You may never get to spend time with somebody, but when you read their book, you're getting their thoughts and they're actually mentoring you for, you know, usually what, $18, $25. That's an incredible value for what you get.
Oh, yeah. Well, John Maxwell's a great example. If you want him to speak at your event, it's going to cost about $25K.
Yeah.
Just for the speaking.
At least.
Yeah.
Yeah.
$25K at least.
Yeah.
I don't have $25,000 to spend on having him come out.
No.
But if I spend $20 to $30, I can get a concentrated version of his thoughts on a subject.
Yeah.
For like a fraction of the cost.
Well, and the positive side of that intentional mentoring is it helps you really kind of work your thoughts out and you figure out, oh, this is what I think. This is how I feel. And that's a good place to be. And it can also help you see things from a different perspective. When someone else does something different from you, it helps you go, oh, okay, I never thought of it that way.
Right.
And that helps you grow. So that's where intentional mentoring is something that we want to do purposely because it's really training our brain the right way.
Yeah, and that can even happen with entertainment. Like,
It can.
It's good to have heroes in a story that you aspire to be like.
Exactly.
That's not wrong.
Yeah.
That's a good thing.
Yeah, it is. And when you hang out with other people, when you read things that are different from what's normal or watch a show that's different, it can challenge you. It can help you think through things in a different way.
Yeah. And, well, here's a great example of me in college. This was not me being the person that was that model.
Yeah.
It was me meeting somebody that was that model for me. I always bought into the cultural assumption that most of us do. Discipline is a pain in the butt.
Yeah.
You got to do it when you have to.
Yeah.
But ideally, it'd be nice if you didn't have to be disciplined because it's just kind of a pain.
Yeah.
And I just assumed that. I didn't know I assumed that. But then I got around one of my friends, Andrew, And he was one of the most disciplined people I'd ever met in my life.
Yeah.
But he loved it.
Mm-hmm.
He loved getting up at 5 a.m. and going for a 10-mile run.
Yeah.
He loved eating right.
Yeah.
He loved, doing a devotional or prayer or whatever. He loved the disciplines of his life, and he had fallen in love with that.
Yeah.
And that challenged a thought pattern I didn't know I had of like discipline's a pain in the butt. And I was like, well, it doesn't look like it's a pain in the butt to him.
Yeah.
It seems like it's actually helping him live a good life.
Yeah.
Maybe I should incorporate discipline, and maybe that'll give me a good life. Maybe discipline doesn't have to come from a place of obligation.
Yeah.
It can come from a place of I'm contributing to what I know matters, and that gives me joy.
Yeah.
And I would never have thought about that if someone my own age hadn't modeled that for me.
Yeah, and that's where intentional mentoring is. You want to look at those options. Who are the people I hang around? What am I reading? What am I watching? It really does make a difference in your life and how you live.
Because unfortunately, it can work in the other direction.
It can.
You can hang around somebody who brings out cynicism you'd never thought of before, who brings out a frustration and victim mentality that you never thought of. Like, you're right. I'm not making that much money, and I got an education too. Yeah. I'm a victim too.
I'm better than them. We see that the commercials all the lawyers have on TV. You have money you deserve. And you're like, yeah, I do deserve money when I didn't work for it. And so what we want to do is look out at, okay, what am I doing to be purposeful in what I'm thinking?
Yeah. The input can help us see things differently.
Yeah, it can.
Now,
it just can.
The final one is to pick your thought.
Yeah, which is kind of our challenge for this week.
Yeah.
To help you. And we want to tell men, notice we didn't say pick your thoughts. We said pick your thought. And the reason for that is if you want to go back to a war illustration, you can't fight a multiple front war or you lose. What's the thing from Princess Bride? The greatest blunder.
Never start a land war in Asia.
Never start a land war in Asia. Well, Hitler was doing well. He had some success with his blitzkrieg and thought, okay, I'm going to battle Britain, but I'm going to invade Russia too. And that was the beginning of the end because he tried to fight a two-front war. And it's almost impossible to do. And he failed. And a lot of us as men, when we see, okay, I've got some thinking problems to do, we have to be careful we don't try to fix everything at once.
Yep.
We want to pick a thought and we want to begin to build on that thought and not let maybe a little momentary momentum make us think, I can fix everything at once. No, you want to pick one thing at a time and begin working on that.
Well, imagine if I, over the past 5 years, had been working on Spanish and on French and on Chinese and on Russian and on Japanese and on, let's say, a Navajo language. And I wanted to learn the Star Trek language. That'd be interesting. And I wanted, I would have virtually no progress in any of those.
You wouldn't.
But because I've done just Spanish every day for years, I'm finally getting to the point where I see results. It can work that way for your mind. If you try and work on 37 thoughts at once, none of them are going to change because you're going to start out feeling real good. Like, hey, we're going to change it all right now. And then 2 weeks later, when the day didn't go well, you're not going to have something very simple to do. You want to plan for things that can be done on your worst day.
And you want to do things that help you move the needle ahead because what we have to understand is that all or nothing tendency hurts us as men. We have a tendency to, I want to fix everything at once. I want to change my brain with everything at once. And if you want to see long-term success, it's built with the little daily victories, the little step-by-step. It's just like getting in shape, losing weight. It doesn't happen in 1 week. You've got to take time and do it over and over again because you not only grow in how you think, but you become more confident because you're building that momentum in a positive way.
Momentum's a great word. And that long-term momentum happens through small victories.
It is.
Makes me think of a passage of scripture. It's Zechariah 4:10. it says, who dares make light of small beginnings? God was referring to when they had laid the foundation of a new temple.
Yeah.
The new temple was way smaller and less glamorous than the old temple.
Yeah.
It was something that people were ridiculing them for.
Yeah.
But God paid attention and it mattered to him. So if God cares about small beginnings, we probably should too.
Yeah, we've had a neighbor across the street last few weeks has been putting a brand new pool in his backyard. And his backyard is ripped up, torn up. They had to dig down deep. They had to do a ton of work, put up retaining walls. And right now it doesn't look good at all. But come next spring,
it's going to look amazing.
It's going to look great. And he's going to be so happy he did it. And that's what we have to remember. You have to think of that long term. And so if you're going to change your thought, it's a lot of work. But if you focus on one thought and begin changing it, you'll see that momentum build up.
Yeah. And so what our challenge to you is pick one thought.
Yeah.
Recognize a negative thought pattern. You probably already have one in mind.
Yeah.
If you don't, just follow the steps from the first thing and find probably the most damaging thought.
Yeah.
Find a good thought to replace it
and
focus on developing that good thought. Focus on developing the different nuances of the good thought. Let's say the thing is you have a very big scarcity mentality. You're always afraid there's not going to be enough.
Yeah.
Well, let's focus on a long-term generous mentality. Hey, God's got enough. And even if I'm broke today, I'm not going to stay broke. Developing that mentality can occur. So,
and you can find people who are authors, you can find podcasts, you can find things to say, okay, I want to grow in this area.
Good point.
And when you do that, it kind of helps you with that thought pattern. So when you recognize your thought pattern as a negative, you can find the things to help you make it a positive.
Commit to that thought long term.
Yeah.
You have to be in it for the long haul. It didn't take 1 month to develop that negative thought pattern. So it's not going to take 1 month to develop the positive version. You have to be journey oriented. That's what we're all about on this podcast, is that you can live a long-term journey oriented transformation.
Yeah.
You can change. It's possible. It'll take work. It'll take time. But we believe you can do it.
Yeah, and that's what we do as men. We're not afraid of work. We're not afraid of getting things done. But a lot of us never think about how that applies to our own thinking and how changing that. And it will be hard, but the better you do it, I think that the better your life will be and the more you'll enjoy your giftings and your abilities every day.
Exactly. So pick one thought, stick with it. It'll be worth it. Okay? So on this podcast here at thrivingman.com, our goal is to empower you to live a successful life mentally, emotionally, spiritually, physically. We think that you do that on the way. Success is inside out, and it's on the way. So pick that thought, apply it. If you want more resources, you can go to thrivingman.com. But we want to encourage you. Make this a long-term journey. We're with you on the way, and we'll see you in the next episode.
Thanks for listening to the Thriving Man Podcast. If you want to check out more resources from David and Reese, you can go to thrivingman.com. We'll see you in the next episode.